What if some of history's greatest discoveries weren't hidden inside famous pyramids or lost cities, but beneath ordinary fields, quiet forests, and forgotten hills that millions of people pass without ever knowing what lies below? Across the world, archaeologists have uncovered places that completely changed our understanding of the ancient past. A perfume factory that operated nearly 4,000 years ago. A vast underground mine where Neolithic workers disappeared into the earth with nothing but antler picks. Stone faces carved more than 11,000 years ago. A sacred pool where the priests of ancient Sumer performed rituals. And mysterious circles that remained buried beneath the Scottish landscape for thousands of years before anyone realized they were there. None of these places were myths. They're real, they've all been discovered, and each one raises new questions that historians still can't fully answer. The Lion Man of Hohenstein-Stadel. Deep inside a limestone cave in southern Germany, archaeologists uncovered a figure unlike anything they had ever seen. It stood only about 30 centimeters tall, carved from the ivory of a woolly mammoth. Its body was unmistakably human. Its head belonged to a cave lion. Today, it is known as the Lion Man, or Löwenmensch, and it is one of the oldest known examples of figurative art ever discovered, created around 40,000 years ago, long before the first pyramids, before Stonehenge, before agriculture. This remarkable sculpture offers a rare glimpse into the minds of some of the earliest modern humans in Europe. The Lion Man was discovered in 1939 inside Hohenstein-Stadel Cave, located in Germany's Lone Valley. The cave had already produced Ice Age tools and animal bones when archaeologist Robert Wetzel began excavating its interior. Near the back of the cave, researchers uncovered hundreds of small ivory fragments scattered across the floor. At the time, no one realized they belonged to a single object. Soon afterward, the outbreak of the Second World War halted further research. The fragments were carefully stored away, waiting decades for their true significance to be understood. Chacht. It was not until the late 20th century that archaeologists painstakingly reassembled the broken pieces, like an enormous three-dimensional puzzle. More than 300 fragments were matched together. Each new excavation inside the cave uncovered additional missing pieces. With every reconstruction, the figure became more complete. Today, the restored sculpture stands nearly 31 centimeters tall, making it one of the largest surviving ivory carvings from the Ice Age. The craftsmanship is astonishing. The entire figure was carved from a single mammoth tusk. Ancient artisans carefully shaped the ivory using stone blades and flint tools. They carved muscular arms, defined legs, delicate hands, and a powerful feline face complete with pointed ears and an elongated muzzle. Even after 40,000 years, fine tool marks remain visible under microscopic examination. The amount of labor involved suggests the carving required many weeks, perhaps even months, to complete. The sculpture belongs to the Aurignacian culture, one of the earliest groups of modern humans to settle Europe after arriving from Africa. These people lived alongside mammoths, woolly rhinoceroses, reindeer, and cave lions during the last Ice Age. Their world was harsh, cold, and constantly changing. Yet alongside hunting weapons and survival tools, they also created music, jewelry, and sophisticated works of art. The Lion Man demonstrates that symbolic thinking had already become deeply rooted in human society. Why combine a human body with the head of a lion? No one knows for certain. Some researchers believe the figure may represent a spiritual being, part human, part animal. Others suggest it depicts a mythical ancestor, a powerful hunter, or perhaps a shaman wearing the skin of a cave lion during ritual ceremonies. Because no written records survive, its true meaning remains unknown. What makes the sculpture so extraordinary is not that it answers questions, but that it raises entirely new ones about the beliefs of Ice Age people. Excavations within Hohenstein-Stadel Cave uncovered more than the famous figurine: stone blades, animal bones, ivory working debris, and hearths revealed that people repeatedly occupied the cave over thousands of years. The abundance of mammoth ivory fragments suggests skilled craftspeople worked inside the shelter, transforming tusks into ornaments, tools, and artistic creations. The Lion Man did not emerge from an isolated culture. It was produced by people with remarkable technical ability and creative imagination. Modern technology has allowed archaeologists to study the sculpture in extraordinary detail. Three-dimensional laser scanning, microscopic analysis, and radiocarbon dating have refined its age and revealed subtle carving techniques invisible to the naked eye. Conservators have also reconstructed damaged areas without altering the original material, allowing researchers to better understand how the figure was originally shaped. Today, the Lion Man is preserved at the Ulm Museum in Germany, where it remains one of the world's greatest archaeological treasures. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of the Lion Man is what it reveals about the human mind. Creating a creature that does not exist in nature requires imagination. It requires the ability to combine separate ideas into something entirely new. That capacity lies at the heart of storytelling, religion, art, and eventually civilization itself. The sculpture suggests that 40,000 years ago, humans were already thinking far beyond simple survival. They were imagining worlds that existed only in their minds. Today, the Lion Man of Hohenstein-Stadel stands as one of humanity's earliest masterpieces, hidden inside a quiet German cave for tens of thousands of years. It survived the passage of time until archaeologists carefully brought it back into the light, neither fully human nor entirely animal. The ancient figure continues to challenge our understanding of prehistoric belief, reminding us that the first great works of imagination were created long before history was ever written. The Toraja Cliff Graves. High above the lush green valleys of Indonesia's Sulawesi Island, wooden balconies cling to towering limestone cliffs. Ancient coffins rest inside caves carved into solid rock. Rows of silent wooden figures gaze across the landscape. For centuries, these remarkable cliffside tombs have protected generations of the Toraja people. To outsiders, they may appear mysterious. But to the Toraja, they are not places of fear. They are places where the living remain connected to the dead. Today, the cliff graves of Tanah Toraja stand among the world's most extraordinary archaeological landscapes, offering a rare glimpse into burial traditions that have endured for hundreds of years. The Toraja people have lived for centuries in the mountainous interior of South Sulawesi, long before outside influences reached the region. Their ancestors developed a unique belief system known as Aluk Tudolo, often translated as the Way of the Ancestors. Life and death were not seen as separate journeys. Instead, death marked the beginning of another stage of existence. Preparing a loved one for that journey became one of the community's most important responsibilities. Rather than burying their dead beneath the earth, the Toraja carved tombs directly into towering limestone cliffs. Some burial chambers were chiseled deep into the rock using simple iron tools. Others were natural caves adapted for generations of family burials. Large wooden coffins were carefully placed inside these chambers, protected from floods and wild animals by the height of the cliffs. The effort required to create each tomb reflected the respect shown to the deceased. Perhaps the most striking feature of these burial sites is the presence of Tau Tau. These life-sized wooden effigies represent the people buried within the cliffs. Each figure was traditionally carved to resemble the deceased, complete with distinctive clothing, facial features, and jewelry. Placed on balconies overlooking the valleys below, the figures appear to silently watch over the villages where their families continue to live. For the Toraja, the Tau Tau are symbols of remembrance rather than objects of worship. The funeral ceremonies themselves were equally remarkable. Death was not always followed by immediate burial. Families often spent months, or even years, preparing elaborate ceremonies that required enormous resources. Until the funeral could be held, The deceased was traditionally treated as though they were simply ill rather than gone forever. Relatives continued speaking to them, bringing food, and including them in daily life. Only after the final ceremony was the journey into the afterlife considered complete. Archaeological studies have revealed that many of these cliff tombs have been used continuously for centuries. Some caves contain the remains of multiple generations from the same family. Wooden coffins, human bones, ceremonial objects, textiles, and carved decorations have survived within the dry limestone chambers. Together, they provide archaeologists with valuable evidence about changing burial customs, craftsmanship, and the social structure of Toraja communities through time. One of the most famous burial sites is Londa. Here, visitors can walk through natural caves where centuries-old coffins remain exactly where they were originally placed. Nearby, the cliffs are lined with rows of tau standing quietly on narrow ledges. Another remarkable site, Limo, features dozens of carved burial chambers arranged high across an almost vertical cliff face. Together, these locations have become some of Indonesia's most important cultural heritage sites. Modern archaeology has helped document the construction of these remarkable tombs using laser scanning, three-dimensional mapping, and careful conservation work. Researchers study tool marks left in the limestone, the age of wooden coffins, and changes in carving styles across different generations. These investigations reveal how burial traditions evolved while maintaining their essential cultural meaning over hundreds of years. Unlike many archaeological discoveries, the Toraja cliff graves are not abandoned monuments frozen in the past. Many families continue using traditional burial sites today. Funeral ceremonies remain among the most significant events in Toraja society. Ancient customs continue alongside modern life, creating an extraordinary connection between archaeology, living tradition, and cultural identity. Few places in the world preserve such an unbroken relationship with ancestral practices. Today, the cliff graves of Tanah Toraja remind us that archaeology is not only about uncovering lost civilizations. Sometimes, it is about understanding traditions that have survived through generations, still practiced beneath the same towering cliffs where ancestors were laid to rest centuries ago, high above the valleys of Sulawesi. The silent wooden guardians continue watching over the landscape, preserving a story of memory, respect, and humanity's enduring bond with those who came before. The Bosnian Pyramid Controversy, rising above the quiet town of Visoko in central Bosnia. A steep forest-covered hill has sparked one of archaeology's most controversial debates. At first glance, it appears to be an ordinary natural mountain, but to some, its sharply angled slopes resemble the sides of a giant pyramid. Supporters believe it may be the largest and oldest pyramid ever discovered. Most archaeologists disagree, arguing that it is simply a naturally formed hill shaped by geological processes. Few places in the world have divided opinion as dramatically as this. Known today as the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, the hill called Visočica has become a symbol of the delicate line between archaeological discovery and extraordinary speculation. The story began in 2005. Bosnian businessman and author Semir Osmanagić announced that Visočica Hill was not a natural formation, but the remains of an enormous man-made pyramid. He pointed to the hill's triangular faces, its apparent alignment with the cardinal directions, and stone surfaces that he believed were artificial concrete blocks. Soon afterward, excavations began around the site. News of the discovery spread rapidly across the world. Visitors arrived from dozens of countries, curious to see what some newspapers called Europe's first pyramid. Visočica itself has a long and genuine history. Long before the pyramid claims, the summit was already known as the location of Visoki, a medieval fortress that served as an important political center during the Kingdom of Bosnia. Archaeologists had studied the hill for decades. Stone walls, pottery, foundations, and medieval artifacts confirmed that people had occupied the summit during the Middle Ages. these discoveries remain undisputed. The debate concerns not the fortress, but the much older hill beneath it. Supporters of the pyramid theory argue that several features appear unusually regular. The slopes are remarkably straight in certain areas. Some exposed stone layers resemble carefully cut blocks. Measurements have suggested that parts of the hill align closely with the north, south, east, and west. Nearby underground tunnels, known as the Ravna Tunnel Complex, have also become central to the theory. Some believe these passages were part of a vast prehistoric engineering project. Others claim unusual energy fields exist within the tunnels, although these claims remain scientifically unverified. Most professional archaeologists and geologists, however, offer a very different explanation. They argue that Vysochika is a completely natural landform created through millions of years of geological activity. The hill is composed of sedimentary rock, including sandstone, conglomerate, and clay, materials that naturally fracture into flat surfaces and angular shapes. According to this interpretation, the apparent pyramid faces are simply the result of erosion acting upon layered rock formations over immense periods of time. International archaeological organizations have repeatedly expressed concern about the excavations. Experts argue that digging based on unsupported pyramid theories risks damaging authentic historical remains, including the medieval fortress that genuinely occupies the summit. The European Association of Archaeologists described the pyramid claims as lacking credible scientific evidence. Many researchers emphasize that extraordinary archaeological discoveries require equally extraordinary evidence, including carefully documented excavations, reliable dating, peer-reviewed publications, and independent verification. So far, such evidence has not convinced the broader scientific community. Despite the controversy, research at Visoko has produced valuable information. Geologists have mapped the hill's rock formations in detail. Archaeologists continue studying the medieval fortress, while engineers have documented sections of the Ravne tunnels. Although the tunnels were once described as ancient passageways, many specialists believe they are abandoned mining excavations or later man-made workings rather than prehistoric structures. Even so, the site continues attracting researchers interested in understanding its complex geology and history. Tourism has transformed the region. Every year, thousands of visitors climb the hill, walk through the tunnels, and explore the surrounding valley. For the local community, the Bosnian Pyramid has become an important economic resource. Hotels, museums, restaurants, and guided tours now welcome travelers from around the world, whether visitors arrive out of scientific curiosity or fascination with mystery. The site has undeniably changed the future of Visoko. The Bosnian Pyramid debate highlights one of archaeology's greatest challenges. Curiosity often inspires remarkable discoveries, but curiosity must also be balanced with careful evidence. History contains many genuine surprises, lost cities, unknown civilizations, and extraordinary monuments that once seemed impossible. Yet archaeology advances through excavation, analysis, dating, and independent confirmation, rather than speculation alone. The Moon-Eyed People mystery. Long before European settlers arrived in the Appalachian Mountains, the Cherokee told stories of an unusual people who lived among the hills. According to these traditions, they had pale skin, large eyes, and they could not tolerate the bright light of the daytime sun. Instead, they were said to move mostly at night, earning them the name, the Moon-Eyed People. Were they a real community remembered through generations, or were they simply figures of legend, whose stories gradually changed over time for historians and archaeologists alike? The answer remains uncertain, yet scattered across the southeastern United States. Ancient stone walls, fortified hilltops, and mysterious ruins have kept the legend alive for centuries. The earliest written accounts appeared during the 18th and 19th centuries, when European settlers recorded Cherokee oral traditions. Several versions described a group of light-skinned people who occupied parts of present-day Georgia, North Carolina, and Tennessee. before the ancestors of the Cherokee settled there. Some stories claim these people could not fight effectively during daylight because sunlight hurt their eyes. Others simply describe them as peaceful inhabitants who were eventually driven away. As with many oral traditions, different communities preserve different versions of the story. One place has become closely connected with the legend: Fort Mountain in northern Georgia. Stretching across the summit is an ancient stone wall more than 200 meters long, built from carefully stacked rocks without mortar. The wall follows the mountain ridge before disappearing into the forest. Its true purpose remains unknown. Archaeologists believe Native American communities likely constructed it hundreds of years ago, possibly for ceremonial, defensive, or territorial reasons. However, during the 19th century, some writers suggested the wall had been built by the mysterious Moon-Eyed people instead. No archaeological evidence has confirmed that connection. Another frequently mentioned location is the ancient site of Etowah. Here, archaeologists uncovered one of the largest Mississippian ceremonial centers in North America: massive earthen mounds, wooden buildings, stone tools, copper ornaments. And elaborate burials revealed a sophisticated society that flourished between the 11th and 16th centuries. Some local traditions attempted to link the Moon-Eyed people with these ancient settlements. Modern archaeology, however, attributes the site to indigenous Mississippian cultures rather than an unknown lost population. So who were the Moon-Eyed people? Many theories have been proposed over the years. Some researchers suggest the stories preserve distant memories of an earlier indigenous community displaced by later migrations. Others believe the descriptions became exaggerated as oral traditions evolved across generations. A few writers have even suggested connections with Europeans, Welsh explorers, or entirely unknown civilizations. Yet none of these ideas has been supported by convincing archaeological evidence. Without written records or identifiable artifacts, the identity of the Moon-Eyed people remains impossible to verify. Archaeologists approach the legend with careful caution. Oral traditions often preserve genuine memories of landscapes, ancient settlements, natural disasters, and migrations that occurred centuries earlier. At the same time, legends can combine real historical events with symbolism, metaphor, and storytelling. Separating history from folklore is rarely straightforward. Each tradition must be examined alongside archaeological discoveries, radiocarbon dating, excavation records, and material evidence. Across the Appalachian region, researchers continue uncovering remarkable traces of ancient indigenous civilizations. Stone villages, earthwork complexes, burial mounds, agricultural terraces, and ceremonial centers reveal thousands of years of continuous occupation. These discoveries demonstrate that the history of North America is far older and more complex than early settlers once believed. Although none has confirmed the existence of the Moon-Eyed people, they have transformed our understanding of the continent's ancient past. The legend has also become an important part of regional folklore. Books, museums, historical markers, and local storytellers continue sharing different versions of the tale. For many communities, the story is valued not because it has been proven, but because it reflects the rich oral traditions passed from one generation to the next, whether entirely historical, partly remembered, or largely symbolic. The Moon-Eyed people remain woven into the cultural identity of the southern Appalachian Mountains. The Ness of Brodgar, between two shimmering lochs on Scotland's Orkney Islands. A narrow strip of land holds one of the most remarkable archaeological discoveries ever made in northern Europe. For thousands of years, the landscape appeared almost untouched, just grassy fields surrounded by ancient stone circles. But beneath the soil, an entire ceremonial complex had remained hidden. Massive stone buildings, beautifully carved walls, painted interiors, exquisite pottery, and evidence of rituals unlike anything previously known from Neolithic Britain. known today as the Ness of Brodgar. The site has transformed archaeologists' understanding of life more than 5,000 years ago. The discovery began almost by accident. In 2002, geophysical surveys were carried out between the famous monuments of the Ring of Brodgar and the standing stones of Stennis. Instead of finding empty farmland, researchers detected dozens of enormous buried structures. Excavations soon revealed thick stone walls, courtyards, passageways, and buildings far larger than anyone expected. What had once appeared to be an ordinary field proved to be one of Europe's richest Neolithic archaeological sites. The Ness of Brodgar was occupied between roughly 3,300 and 2,300 BCE. This places it firmly within the Late Stone Age. At a time when farming communities were spreading across Britain, yet the architecture discovered here was astonishingly sophisticated. Some walls measured more than 4 meters thick. Many buildings were carefully aligned. Stone pavements connected different structures. Large central hearths dominated the interiors. The scale suggested that this was no ordinary village. One building quickly captured the attention of archaeologists, known simply as Structure 10. It measured nearly 25 meters in length. Massive stone walls enclosed a carefully designed interior. Stone piers divided the rooms. Decorated slabs lined the walls. And evidence suggested the building had undergone repeated rebuilding over centuries. Some researchers have compared it to a ceremonial hall. Although its exact purpose remains uncertain, no written records survive to explain how it was used. Perhaps the greatest surprise came from the artwork. For many years, people believed Neolithic buildings in Britain were plain and functional. The Ness of Brodgar proved otherwise. Fragments of colored pigments revealed that some walls had once been painted. Beautiful geometric carvings decorated stone slabs, chevron patterns, spirals, lozenges, and carefully engraved symbols appeared throughout the site. These discoveries showed that artistic expression formed an important part of everyday life 5,000 years ago. The excavations also uncovered thousands of remarkable artifacts: finely crafted pottery, polished stone axes, bone tools, flint blades, carved stone balls, and decorated mace heads. Animal bones revealed large communal feasts involving cattle, sheep, and pigs. Some pottery vessels had been deliberately broken during ceremonies before being carefully deposited inside buildings. These practices suggest that ritual activities were deeply woven into life at the settlement. One of the site's greatest mysteries is its relationship with nearby monuments. Just a short distance away stand the Ring of Brodgar, the standing stones of Stennis, and the chambered tomb of Mesopotamia. Together, these monuments form one of the richest prehistoric landscapes in Europe. Many archaeologists believe the Ness of Brodgar may have served as the ceremonial heart connecting these sacred places. People may have gathered here before taking part in rituals among the surrounding stone circles. Exactly how these monuments functioned together, however, remains unknown. After nearly 1,000 years of activity, something extraordinary happened. Around 2,300 BCE, the settlement appears to have been deliberately abandoned. Some buildings were carefully dismantled. Others were filled with rubble and animal bones. In one remarkable event, a huge feast involving hundreds of cattle seems to have taken place before parts of the complex were intentionally sealed beneath layers of stone and earth. Rather than collapsing through neglect, the site appears to have been ceremonially closed. Why? No one can say with certainty. Modern archaeology has transformed our understanding of the Ness of Brodgar. Ground-penetrating surveys, radiocarbon dating, microscopic analysis, and meticulous excavation have revealed an astonishing level of architectural planning and craftsmanship. Every summer, researchers continue uncovering new walls, artifacts, and clues hidden beneath the soil. Even after more than 2 decades of excavation, large portions of the complex remain unexplored. Each discovery adds another piece to a story that has remained buried for 5 millennia. The Banpo Village Pit Dwellings. The site of Banpo lies just east of modern Xi'an in Shanxi province. It was discovered in 1953 during construction work. Archaeologists soon realized they had uncovered an exceptionally well-preserved prehistoric settlement. Extensive excavations followed. As more soil was removed, the outlines of houses, storage pits, kilns, defensive ditches, and cemeteries gradually emerged. Banpo quickly became one of China's most important archaeological discoveries. The village belonged to the Yangshao culture, a Neolithic farming society that flourished between roughly 5000 and 3000 BCE. Radiocarbon dating suggests Banpo itself was occupied around 4800 to 3600 BCE. At that time, the people living here had already developed agriculture, permanent settlements, and sophisticated pottery traditions. Instead of constantly moving in search of food, families built lasting homes and established stable communities. This marked an important step in the development of early civilization across northern China. Perhaps the most distinctive feature of Banpo is its pit houses, rather than constructing buildings entirely above ground. The villagers dug shallow circular or rectangular pits into the earth. Wooden posts supported roofs made from branches, reeds, and mud plaster. Partially underground walls helped insulate the homes, keeping them cooler during the hot summers and warmer throughout the cold winters. Most houses contained central hearths used for cooking, heating, and daily family life. Simple, practical, and remarkably efficient, these dwellings demonstrate a deep understanding of the local environment. The entire settlement was carefully organized. A large open central area served as a communal space. Homes clustered around this shared center. Outside the residential zone, archaeologists uncovered pottery kilns where skilled craftspeople produced everyday vessels. Beyond the village stood a cemetery, separated from the living by both distance and custom. Surrounding much of the settlement was a broad ditch. Researchers continue debating whether it served as a defensive barrier, a drainage system, or simply marked the boundary of the community. Banpo's pottery is among its greatest archaeological treasures. Thousands of ceramic vessels have been recovered. Many are decorated with striking black geometric patterns painted against a reddish surface. Some display stylized fish, human faces, triangles, spirals, and abstract designs. The exact meanings remain uncertain. They may have represented family symbols, religious beliefs, or simply artistic decoration. Whatever their purpose, they reveal an impressive level of craftsmanship achieved thousands of years before written history in China. The discoveries also provide valuable insights into everyday life. Animal bones show that the villagers raised pigs and dogs while hunting deer and other wild animals. Stone sickles, grinding stones, and storage pits indicate that millet farming formed the foundation of the local economy. Bone needles suggest clothing was carefully stitched from woven plant fibers or animal skins. Fishing hooks, net weights, and fish remains reveal that nearby rivers supplied an important source of food alongside agriculture. Together, these discoveries paint a detailed picture of a balanced and self-sufficient community. One of the most significant areas uncovered was the cemetery. Hundreds of burials revealed differences in age, gender, and burial customs. Adults were generally buried in formal graves outside the settlement. Many infants, however, were placed inside painted pottery jars before burial. This touching practice has become one of Banpo's most recognizable archaeological discoveries. Although its symbolic meaning remains uncertain, it reflects the care and ritual attention given even to the youngest members of the community. Modern archaeological methods continue to deepen our understanding of Banpo. Radiocarbon dating, microscopic residue analysis, soil studies, and botanical research have helped reconstruct ancient diets, agricultural practices, and seasonal activities. Every artifact contributes another detail to the story of a society that existed nearly 6,000 years ago. Far from being primitive, the people of Banpo demonstrated remarkable planning, adaptability, and technical skill. Today, the Banpo village pit dwellings stand as one of the finest preserved Neolithic settlements ever excavated in East Asia. They remind us that the foundations of civilization were not built only by kings or emperors, but by ordinary farming families who learned to live together, work together, and pass their knowledge from one generation to the next. Buried beneath the soil for millennia, their village continues to reveal how everyday life quietly shaped the course of human history. The Antikythera wreck's second cargo. More than 60 meters beneath the waters of the Aegean Sea, a shattered ancient ship rests in silence. For over 2,000 years, its cargo lay scattered across the rocky seabed. Bronze statues, marble sculptures, fine glassware, jewelry, coins, and one extraordinary object that would become known as the Antikythera mechanism. For more than a century, archaeologists believed they had uncovered nearly everything the wreck had to offer. But recent excavations have revealed that the ship may still be hiding another remarkable cargo, waiting beneath layers of sediment and stone. The story began in the spring of 1900. Sponge divers sheltering from a storm near the Greek island of Antikythera descended beneath the waves. Instead of finding sponge beds, they encountered an astonishing sight: bronze limbs, marble heads, broken amphorae, and the remains of a massive Roman-era merchant ship. The discovery became one of the world's first large-scale underwater archaeological excavations. Teams recovered dozens of priceless artifacts, forever changing the study of ancient seafaring. The ship itself was enormous. Archaeologists estimate it measured between 40 and 50 meters in length, making it one of the largest merchant vessels known from antiquity. It probably sailed during the 1st century BCE, carrying luxury goods from the eastern Mediterranean toward wealthy Roman buyers. Its cargo reflected extraordinary wealth: life-sized bronze statues, marble masterpieces, elegant furniture, glass vessels, jewelry, coins, and finely crafted ceramics filled its holds. Before reaching its destination, a violent storm likely drove the ship onto the rocky coast, where it sank beneath the sea. Among the recovered objects, none attracted more attention than the Antikythera mechanism. Corroded beyond recognition when first discovered, it later proved to be an astonishing mechanical calculator capable of predicting astronomical events. Its intricate bronze gears demonstrated a level of engineering far beyond what historians once believed possible for the ancient world. Yet, despite its fame, the mechanism represented only one small part of the ship's cargo. Many questions about the vessel itself remained unanswered. For decades, researchers assumed that most valuable objects had already been recovered. However, beginning in the 21st century, new underwater technologies transformed the investigation. Divers equipped with advanced rebreathers, three-dimensional mapping systems, metal detectors, and remotely operated equipment returned to the wreck. Instead of finding an exhausted site, they uncovered evidence suggesting that much more remained buried beneath thick layers of sediment. Among the most exciting discoveries were additional bronze fragments, sections of marble statues, decorated furniture fittings, glass vessels, gold jewelry, and human skeletal remains. Some bronze pieces appeared to belong to statues never before identified. Others may have broken away from sculptures recovered over a century earlier. These discoveries suggested that large portions of the original cargo still lay hidden beneath collapsed timbers and rocks. Rather than a fully excavated wreck, the Antikythera site remained an active archaeological treasure. The possibility of a second cargo has become one of the excavation's greatest mysteries. Some researchers believe the merchant ship carried multiple layers of valuable goods stacked deep within its holds. When the vessel broke apart on the seabed, heavy objects may have become trapped beneath the hull, protected by sediments for more than 2,000 years. If correct, entire bronze statues, marble sculptures, or additional mechanical devices could still remain undiscovered beneath the wreckage. For now, the evidence remains tantalizing rather than conclusive. The human remains recovered from the wreck have also transformed the investigation. Fragments of bones belonging to several individuals have been studied using modern scientific techniques. Researchers hope ancient DNA analysis may reveal the ancestry, health, and even possible origins of people aboard the ship. Combined with isotope studies, these discoveries may eventually help reconstruct the lives of sailors and passengers who perished during the disaster. Rarely has an ancient shipwreck preserved such an opportunity for both archaeological and biological research. Each excavation season continues revealing new surprises. The seabed around the wreck remains extremely challenging. Strong currents, great depth, and unstable rocks make every dive difficult. Even so, every carefully removed layer of sediment has produced additional artifacts, suggesting that much of the ancient cargo still lies undisturbed. Modern underwater archaeology proceeds slowly, recording every object exactly where it rests before recovery. Patience has become the greatest excavation tool of all. The Los Millares fortified settlement. Los Millares lies near the modern city of Almería in southeastern Spain. The site was first identified in the late 19th century during railway construction. When archaeologists began excavating, they uncovered the remains of an enormous prehistoric settlement unlike anything previously discovered in Western Europe. Stone walls stretched across the hill, circular bastions guarded narrow entrances. Beyond the settlement, hundreds of impressive tombs covered the surrounding landscape. The discovery quickly became one of the defining archaeological sites of Europe's Copper Age. The settlement flourished between roughly 3,200 and 2,200 BCE. This was a time of major technological change. Communities had begun working native copper into tools, weapons, and ornaments. Although stone implements remained common, metalworking was becoming increasingly important. Los Millares emerged as one of the earliest centers for copper production in Western Europe, giving archaeologists valuable insight into the beginnings of metallurgy on the continent. Perhaps the site's most striking feature is its extraordinary system of defenses. Rather than relying upon a single protective wall, the inhabitants constructed several concentric lines of fortification. Thick stone walls surrounded the settlement. Circular towers projected outward to strengthen vulnerable points. Narrow gateways forced anyone entering to pass through controlled entrances. Outside the walls, deep ditches created additional obstacles. For a community living more than 5,000 years ago, the level of military planning was remarkable. Inside the fortifications, archaeologists uncovered the remains of homes, workshops, storage buildings, and open communal areas. The houses were generally circular or oval in shape, built from stone foundations with walls of mud and timber. Grinding stones, animal bones, pottery, and weaving tools reveal the rhythms of everyday life. Families farmed wheat and barley, raised sheep, goats, and cattle, while skilled craftspeople produced tools and ornaments for the wider community. Copperworking played a central role in the settlement. Excavations uncovered furnaces, crucibles, stone molds, and large quantities of slag left behind after smelting. Nearby mountains supplied copper ore, which was heated to separate the metal from surrounding rock. The finished copper became axes, awls, daggers, and decorative objects. Although copper was softer than the iron that would later replace it, its production represented an important technological breakthrough that transformed prehistoric society. Beyond the walls lies one of Los Millares' greatest archaeological treasures, more than 80 large communal tombs, known as tholos tombs, dot the surrounding hillsides. Each consisted of a stone-built chamber reached through a narrow passage. Some tombs were used repeatedly over generations. Archaeologists recovered pottery, stone tools, copper objects, ivory ornaments, and beads made from exotic materials. These grave goods suggest that the community maintained long-distance trade networks stretching across the western Mediterranean. The impressive fortifications have sparked an enduring archaeological question. Why did the people of Los Molares invest so much effort in defending their settlement? Some researchers believe competition over fertile land, water, and valuable copper resources may have increased conflict between neighboring communities. Others suggest the walls also projected power and prestige, demonstrating the wealth and organization of those who lived within them. Without written records, the exact reason remains uncertain, but the scale of the defenses leaves little doubt that security was considered essential. Modern archaeological research continues to deepen our understanding of the site. Radiocarbon dating, microscopic analysis of metal residues, landscape surveys, and experimental archaeology have revealed how copper was mined, smelted, and worked into finished tools. Researchers have also reconstructed sections of the fortifications, helping visitors appreciate the remarkable engineering achieved during the Copper Age. Every excavation season provides new clues about one of Europe's earliest complex societies. Today, Los Molares stands as one of the most important prehistoric settlements ever discovered in Spain. Its towering walls, sophisticated defenses, advanced copper workshops, and monumental tombs reveal a society far more organized than historians once imagined. 5,000 years after its builders abandoned the hill, their stone fortifications still overlook the surrounding valleys. A silent reminder that even in humanity's earliest chapters, communities possessed the knowledge, the ambition, and the determination to shape the landscape in extraordinary ways. The Cave of Crystals. The cave lies beneath the Naka mine in the Mexican state of Chihuahua. For decades, miners pumped groundwater from deep underground to reach valuable deposits of silver, lead, and zinc. In the year 2000, while excavating a new tunnel, workers unexpectedly broke into a hidden chamber. As the dust settled, their lights illuminated something astonishing. Gigantic white crystal columns filled the cave from floor to ceiling. Nothing like it had ever been seen before. The crystals are made of selenite, a transparent variety of the mineral gypsum. Although gypsum is common throughout the world, it usually forms in small, fragile crystals. Inside Naka, the crystals reached sizes previously thought impossible. Some measured over a meter in diameter. Others extended across the entire chamber. Standing among them, researchers often describe the cave as resembling a forest of giant glass trees. How could crystals grow so large? The answer lies in an extraordinary combination of geology and time. For hundreds of thousands of years, hot mineral-rich groundwater remained trapped within the cave. Temperatures stayed remarkably stable. Around 58 degrees Celsius, the water contained large quantities of dissolved calcium sulfate. Because the temperature changed only very slowly over immense periods, the crystals grew at an exceptionally gradual pace. Instead of producing thousands of small crystals, nature allowed only a few enormous ones to continue growing uninterrupted. The environment inside the cave is almost impossible for humans to endure. Air temperatures exceed 50 degrees Celsius. Humidity approaches 100%. Sweat cannot evaporate. Without specialized cooling suits, a person can suffer dangerous overheating within only a few minutes. Early scientific expeditions relied upon carefully timed visits, often lasting less than 10 minutes before researchers were forced to retreat. Even with protective equipment, working inside the cave remained physically exhausting. Despite these challenges, scientists managed to carry out detailed investigations. They measured crystal growth, analyzed water chemistry, and studied microscopic fluid trapped within the crystals themselves. These tiny pockets preserve ancient groundwater that became sealed inside during crystal formation. Some may contain microorganisms that survived in isolation for tens of thousands of years. Researchers continue investigating whether these unusual microbes adapted to one of Earth's most extreme underground environments. The Cave of Crystals has also transformed scientific understanding of mineral formation. Laboratory experiments alone could never recreate the stable conditions that existed naturally beneath Neka. The cave became a unique, natural laboratory, helping geologists understand how temperature, pressure, and dissolved minerals influence crystal growth over enormous timescales. Its lessons extend beyond geology, providing clues about similar mineral processes occurring deep beneath Earth's crust today. Sadly, the cave's future remains uncertain. When mining operations eventually slowed, groundwater gradually returned. The chamber has begun filling once again with hot mineral-rich water. Paradoxically, the flooding protects the fragile crystals from damage caused by exposure to dry air. Many scientists believe the cave is safest when submerged, just as it remained for thousands of years before its accidental discovery. For now, only limited access is possible. Most people will never see the giant crystals with their own eyes. Although the Cave of Crystals is a natural wonder rather than an archaeological site, its discovery reminds us that remarkable hidden worlds still exist beneath our feet. Just as archaeologists uncover forgotten civilizations buried beneath the soil, geologists continue revealing landscapes that remained concealed for millions of years. Both fields depend upon careful exploration, scientific observation, and patience. Sometimes, the greatest discoveries are not built by human hands, but created quietly by nature itself over unimaginable spans of time. Today, the giant selenite crystals of Neka remain among the largest ever found anywhere on Earth. They grew silently in complete darkness. Long before the first humans walked across the surrounding desert, they continued growing while civilizations rose and fell above them, hidden beneath layers of rock, untouched by history. Only by chance were they finally revealed, and even now. The Cave of Crystals reminds us that some of Earth's greatest mysteries are still waiting, not in distant galaxies, but deep beneath the ground, beneath our feet. The Georgia Guidestone's origin mystery. The story began in June 1979. A well-dressed stranger entered the offices of the Elberton Granite Finishing Company. He introduced himself using the name R.C. Christian. He explained that he represented a small group of loyal Americans who wished to build a monument unlike any other. The project would be expensive, but money was not a problem. The only condition: their real identities must remain secret forever, even today. No verified record has revealed who R.C. Christian actually was. At first, the granite company assumed the visitor was joking. The proposed monument required enormous blocks of carefully cut stone, sophisticated engineering, and precise astronomical alignment. It would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yet, when financial guarantees were requested, the mysterious client provided them without hesitation. Construction soon began on March 22, 1980. The Georgia Guidestones were officially unveiled to the public. The completed monument consisted of 4 upright granite slabs surrounding a central pillar. A massive capstone rested across the top. Additional marker stones extended into the ground nearby. Although the structure appeared simple, its design incorporated remarkable astronomical features. A narrow hole through one pillar pointed directly toward the North Star. Another opening aligned with the sun's annual movement. A slot allowed sunlight to pass through at noon, marking the changing seasons. These precise alignments reflected careful planning rather than coincidence. Perhaps the monument's most famous feature was its inscriptions. 10 messages were carved into the granite. Each appeared in 8 modern languages, including English, Spanish, Russian, Chinese, Arabic, Hindi, Hebrew, and Swahili. Additional inscriptions in ancient languages adorned the upper surfaces. The messages offered philosophical principles concerning humanity, justice, nature, population, and international cooperation. Some readers interpreted them as hopeful advice for rebuilding civilization after a global catastrophe. Others viewed them far more critically. Almost immediately, questions began to surround the monument. Who exactly financed its construction? Why did the sponsors insist upon complete anonymity? Why were these particular messages chosen? Despite decades of investigation, no definitive answers emerged. The banker who handled the financial arrangements honored his promise of confidentiality until his death. The surviving records revealed almost nothing about the mysterious client beyond the false name he provided. As public attention grew, the guidestones became the focus of countless theories. Some claimed they represented instructions left by a secret society. Others suggested connections to Freemasonry, Rosicrucian traditions, or philosophical movements advocating global cooperation. Still, others imagined links to entirely different organizations. None of these claims has ever been supported by reliable historical evidence. The true motivations of the monument's creators remain unknown because the people involved deliberately concealed their identities. From an archaeological perspective, the guidestones presented an unusual case. Unlike ancient monuments, their construction was thoroughly documented. Engineers knew how they were built. The granite came from nearby quarries. Yet the monument's purpose remained elusive. Future archaeologists studying the site centuries from now might possess detailed construction records, but still struggle to understand the intentions behind its messages. The mystery lies not in the engineering, but in the human story that was intentionally hidden. In July 2022, the monument entered a new chapter. An explosion severely damaged one of the granite slabs. Safety concerns led officials to dismantle the remaining structure later that same day. Although the guidestones no longer stand on the Georgia hillside, fragments have been preserved, and photographs, measurements, and historical records ensure the monument continues to be studied. Ironically, its destruction only renewed public interest in its mysterious origins. Today, the Georgia Guidestones remain one of America's most unusual historical enigmas, not because they are ancient, but because they demonstrate how mystery can exist even in the modern world. Their builders left behind granite, precise astronomical alignments, and carefully carved messages. Yet they erased themselves from the story. The stones have fallen, but the greatest question still stands. Who commissioned the monument? And why did they believe their identities should remain hidden forever? The Paracas' elongated skulls. The story began in 1928. Peruvian archaeologist Julio Citelo explored the Paracas Peninsula along Peru's southern coast. There, he uncovered an enormous ancient cemetery containing hundreds of burials. Many of the dead had been wrapped in elaborate textile bundles, preserved by the desert's exceptionally dry climate. As the bundles were carefully opened, researchers discovered beautifully woven fabrics, ceramics, jewelry, and the now famous elongated skulls. The cemetery became one of the most important archaeological discoveries in South America. The people buried there belonged to the Paracas culture, which flourished roughly between 800 BCE and 100 BCE. They developed sophisticated farming despite the harsh desert environment, created some of the finest textiles ever produced in the ancient Americas, and practiced complex burial rituals that reflected deeply held spiritual beliefs. Although the Paracas left no written language, their cemeteries provide an extraordinary record of their daily lives, social organization, and artistic achievements. The elongated skulls immediately attracted scientific attention. Some measured significantly longer than typical human skulls. Their unusual shape appeared dramatic, especially when viewed from the side. Early observers wondered whether they represented a separate human population. However, archaeologists soon recognized evidence of a cultural practice known as intentional cranial modification. Beginning shortly after birth, an infant's soft skull could be gently shaped using cloth bindings, wooden boards, or specially designed supports. Over several years, the skull gradually developed its elongated appearance without affecting the person's intelligence. This practice was not unique to the Paracas. Intentional skull shaping has been documented in many ancient societies, including cultures across Central Asia, Africa, Europe, and the Americas. Different communities created distinctive head shapes that reflected local traditions. Among the Parakas, the elongated skull may have signaled noble status, family identity, or membership within particular social groups, although the precise meaning remains uncertain. Researchers agree that the practice held important cultural significance. The Parakas are perhaps even more famous for their extraordinary textiles. Many burial bundles contained brilliantly colored cloaks embroidered with birds, felines, serpents, and supernatural figures. Some garments required thousands of hours of skilled craftsmanship, even after more than 2,000 years. The dry desert climate preserved many fabrics in astonishing condition. Today, these textiles are considered masterpieces of ancient Andean art, providing valuable insight into Paraka's religion, symbolism, and ceremonial life. In recent years, the elongated skulls have become the subject of widespread internet speculation. Various unsupported claims have suggested that the skulls belong to unknown human species, or even beings from beyond Earth. These ideas often rely upon photographs without archaeological context, or selective interpretation of scientific findings. Detailed anatomical studies tell a different story. Although elongated in shape, the skulls retain the characteristics expected of human cranial modification. Researchers continue studying them using modern imaging techniques. But no credible archaeological evidence supports extraordinary origins. Scientific investigations have expanded far beyond the skulls themselves. DNA analysis, radiocarbon dating, stable isotope studies, and microscopic examination of the preserved textiles continue revealing new information about Paraka society. These methods help reconstruct family relationships, diet, migration, and health. Each new discovery strengthens the understanding that the cemetery represents a sophisticated prehistoric culture, not a mysterious lost species. The true story is remarkable precisely because it reflects real human history. Today, many of the Paraka's elongated skulls are preserved in museums throughout Peru, where they continue to fascinate visitors from around the world. Far from being evidence of the impossible, they offer a powerful reminder that human cultures have always expressed identity in diverse and creative ways. The people of Parakas shaped more than stone, textiles, and pottery. They even shaped the human body itself, transforming appearance into a lasting symbol of tradition and belonging. Buried beneath the desert sands for centuries, their remarkable cemeteries continue reminding us that some of history's greatest mysteries become even more fascinating once we understand the people behind them. The Voynich manuscript's origin trail. The manuscript first entered public attention in 1912. A Polish book dealer named Wilfrid Voynich purchased it from a Jesuit college near Rome, Italy. Among a collection of forgotten medieval books, he noticed one unlike any other. Its pages contained flowing script written in an unknown language. The accompanying illustrations appeared equally mysterious. Voynich recognized immediately that he had discovered something extraordinary. The manuscript would eventually become known by his own name. Although the manuscript surfaced in Italy, modern scientific testing has traced its origins much further back. Radiocarbon dating performed on the parchment indicates that the animal skins used to create the pages were prepared during the early 15th century. Around 1404 to 1438, the ink and pigments also appear consistent with materials available during that period. These findings strongly suggest that the manuscript itself is genuinely medieval, not a modern forgery as some once believed. The mystery therefore shifts from authenticity to authorship. The book contains approximately 200 surviving pages. Although researchers believe several are missing, its contents are divided into sections based on their illustrations. One portion depicts unfamiliar botanical drawings, Another contains circular astronomical charts, stars, and zodiac symbols. Elsewhere, intricate diagrams connect flowing tubes, pools, and groups of women bathing in green liquid. The final pages contain dense blocks of text with almost no illustrations at all. Each section appears carefully organized, as though following a logical plan known only to its creator. The writing itself remains the manuscript's greatest puzzle. The characters resemble no known alphabet, yet they are written with remarkable consistency. Certain words appear repeatedly. Others follow recognizable statistical patterns similar to natural languages. Computers have analyzed the text for decades. Artificial intelligence has searched for hidden structures. Military code breakers, professional linguists, and amateur enthusiasts have all attempted to decipher it. So far, none has produced a translation accepted by the scholarly community. Who wrote the manuscript? Many names have been proposed. Some historians suggested the English philosopher Roger Bacon, although radiocarbon dating places the parchment long after his lifetime. Others pointed toward medieval physicians, monks, or court scholars from northern Italy or Central Europe. No surviving document identifies the author. A 17th century letter accompanying the manuscript claimed it may once have belonged to Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II, who reportedly paid a substantial sum believing it contained valuable knowledge. Whether that story is entirely accurate remains uncertain. The illustrations have generated almost as much debate as the writing. Many plants cannot be confidently matched with known species. Some researchers believe they combine parts of different plants, perhaps representing medicinal recipes rather than accurate botanical drawings. The astronomical pages resemble medieval cosmological diagrams, while the bathing figures may relate to medicine, alchemy, or symbolic concepts rather than literal scenes. Without understanding the accompanying text, every interpretation remains incomplete. Over the years, many theories have emerged. Some argue the manuscript records secret medical knowledge. Others suggest it is an encoded scientific work, an alchemical handbook, or a private language invented for a small community. A few researchers have proposed that the text is an elaborate hoax designed to deceive wealthy collectors. However, the manuscript's internal consistency, its carefully prepared parchment, and the enormous effort required to produce it make the hoax theory increasingly difficult to support. Whatever its purpose, creating such a work demanded remarkable dedication. Today, the manuscript is preserved at Yale University's Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library, where it is carefully protected from damage. High-resolution digital images now allow researchers across the world to examine every page without handling the fragile original. Each new generation brings more advanced analytical tools, from multispectral imaging to machine learning to sophisticated linguistic modeling. Yet the manuscript continues to resist every attempt at complete interpretation. The Voynich manuscript reminds us that history does not always surrender its secrets. Its parchment has revealed its age, its pigments have revealed their medieval origins, its journey through Europe can be traced in fragments. But the voice hidden within its pages remains silent. Perhaps one day, a forgotten archive, a newly discovered document, or an unexpected breakthrough in linguistic research will finally unlock its meaning. Until then, the Voynich manuscript remains one of the world's greatest intellectual mysteries, a beautifully illustrated book that has survived 6 centuries, while keeping its greatest secret hidden in plain sight. The Tala Sanctuaries of Minorca. The Talas belong to the Talaiotic culture, a prehistoric society that flourished on Minorca during the Late Bronze Age and Iron Age. Between roughly 1000 BCE and the arrival of Roman rule, the island became home to communities that constructed impressive stone villages, defensive towers, burial structures, and ceremonial sanctuaries, unlike many neighboring Mediterranean cultures. The Talaiotic people left no written records. Everything known about them comes from archaeology. Today, More than 30 Taula sanctuaries have been identified across Menorca. Each follows a remarkably similar design. At the center stands the massive T-shaped monument. Around it, archaeologists have uncovered enclosed horseshoe-shaped courtyards surrounded by stone walls. The careful planning suggests these were not ordinary public spaces. Instead, they appear to have served as sacred places where important rituals were performed. Constructing a taula required extraordinary skill. The upright pillar often reaches 4 meters in height. The horizontal capstone rests precisely upon it, without mortar. Moving stones of such size using only prehistoric technology would have demanded careful organization, wooden rollers, levers, and the coordinated effort of many people. The engineering reflects a community capable of undertaking large public building projects long before modern machinery existed. Şahtedinaya. Excavations around the monuments have revealed clues about their purpose. Animal bones, ceramic vessels, bronze objects, and fragments of imported goods have all been recovered. Many of the animal remains show evidence of ritual sacrifice. Ash deposits suggest fires burned during ceremonial gatherings. These discoveries support the idea that Taula sanctuaries functioned as religious centers, where offerings were made to supernatural powers or ancestral spirits. Some archaeologists believe the Taulas were linked to the worship of deities associated with protection, fertility, or the natural world. Others suggest the sanctuaries honored ancestors whose presence continued to guide the living community. Several sites contain small bronze figurines, including representations of bulls. The bull held symbolic importance throughout many Mediterranean cultures, leading researchers to wonder whether similar beliefs existed among the people of Menorca. Without written texts, the exact meaning of these ceremonies remains unknown. The monuments also reveal evidence of cultural connections beyond the island itself. Imported pottery from Carthage, Greek colonies, and other Mediterranean trading centers has been discovered within several sanctuaries. These finds demonstrate that Menorca was not isolated. Instead, its inhabitants participated in extensive maritime trade networks that connected distant civilizations. Foreign merchants may have brought not only goods, but also new religious ideas, technologies, and artistic influences. Yet the Taulas themselves remain uniquely Menorcan. No identical monuments have been found anywhere else. The orientation of several sanctuaries has inspired further investigation. Some researchers suggest certain Taulas may align with celestial events or the rising of particular stars. Others argue that any apparent alignments may simply reflect practical construction choices or local geography. Unlike monuments such as Stonehenge, no broad scholarly consensus supports a single astronomical purpose. The possibility remains intriguing, but the available evidence is still limited. Excavations continue to reveal new details about daily life surrounding these sacred places. Nearby settlements contain stone houses, storage rooms, workshops, and defensive towers known as talayots. Together, these structures paint a picture of organized communities whose spiritual and everyday lives were closely connected. The sanctuaries were not isolated temples. They stood at the heart of thriving villages, serving generations of island families. Today, the Taulas of Menorca remain among Europe's most distinctive prehistoric monuments. Their elegant simplicity conceals enduring questions that archaeologists continue to explore. They are neither tombs, nor ordinary buildings, nor defensive structures. Instead, they stand as silent witnesses to ceremonies whose songs, prayers, and meanings have vanished with time. Yet even without written records, the great stone monuments continue speaking in another language, one carved not into parchment, but into the landscape itself. Their towering limestone forms remind us that some of humanity's deepest beliefs were expressed not through words, but through stone built to endure for thousands of years. The Guimar Step Pyramids. The pyramids are located in the town of Guimar, on the southeastern side of Tenerife. Although the Canary Islands lie off the northwest coast of Africa, they have long served as an important crossroads between Europe, Africa, and the Atlantic Ocean. Before Spanish conquest in the 15th century, the islands were inhabited by the Guanches, an indigenous people whose origins continue to be studied. Many questions about their history remain unanswered because they left no written records. The stepped structures themselves are built from rough volcanic stone, unlike the finely cut blocks of Egyptian pyramids. The rocks were carefully stacked without mortar. Each pyramid features rectangular terraces, stone stairways, and flattened platforms at the summit. Their construction demonstrates deliberate planning rather than random accumulation, yet exactly when they were built remains one of the site's greatest mysteries. For many years, most archaeologists believe the pyramids were relatively recent. During the 18th and 19th centuries, farmers commonly cleared volcanic stones from their fields. Rather than scattering the rocks, they often stacked them into orderly terraces or walls. Supporters of this explanation argue that the Grime pyramids simply represent unusually organized agricultural work, later mistaken for ancient monuments. Historical documents describing farming activity in the region appear to support this interpretation. The debate changed dramatically during the 1990s. Norwegian explorer Thor Heyerdahl became fascinated by the site. Having spent much of his career studying ancient seafaring, Heyerdahl believed the pyramids deserved much closer investigation. He argued that their careful design, their orientation, and their similarities to stepped monuments elsewhere suggested a more significant purpose. His research attracted worldwide attention, transforming the quiet Tenerife site into an internationally known archaeological mystery. One feature that particularly interested researchers was the monument's alignment with the sun. Observations showed that from certain positions, the pyramids appear connected with the summer and winter solstices. On the day of the summer solstice, observers can witness a striking double sunset, as the sun disappears behind one mountain before briefly reappearing above another ridge. Some scholars believe such alignments may have held ceremonial importance. Others caution that alignments alone cannot determine the age or purpose of a structure. Archaeological excavations have provided important clues. Investigators uncovered layers containing pottery fragments, charcoal, and other materials. Most of the evidence points toward activity during the 19th century, although some discoveries suggest earlier human use of the surrounding area. Unfortunately, no artifacts have been found that definitively prove the pyramids themselves were constructed during prehistoric times. The available evidence therefore remains open to interpretation. The mystery also reflects a broader challenge within archaeology. Stone structures often survive long after the people who built them have disappeared, without inscriptions, documents, or securely dated artifacts. Determining their original purpose becomes extremely difficult. Even carefully constructed monuments can acquire new functions over centuries. Agricultural communities may modify older sites. Later generations may rebuild ancient foundations. The landscape itself preserves only part of the story. Today, the pyramids form part of the Piramides de Grime Ethnographic Park, where visitors can explore the monuments alongside exhibitions explaining the competing theories. Rather than presenting a single conclusion, the site encourages visitors to examine the available evidence for themselves, whether viewed as remarkable agricultural engineering or as monuments connected to older traditions. The pyramids continue inspiring discussion among archaeologists and historians alike. The Grime step pyramids remind us that not every archaeological mystery ends with certainty. Sometimes, the stones survive, but the written records do not. Sometimes, different interpretations emerge from the same evidence. That uncertainty is not a weakness of archaeology. It is part of the discipline itself. Every excavation adds another piece to the puzzle. Every new discovery reshapes old ideas. And on the volcanic slopes of Tenerife, 6 quiet pyramids continue waiting, patiently, for the evidence that may one day reveal why they were built in the first place. Sant Andrea Priu, the Domus de Llanes. The site lies near the town of Bonorva, in the Italian island of Sardinia. At first glance, the rocky hillside appears almost ordinary. Only when visitors approach do they notice dozens of carefully carved entrances cut directly into the cliff face. Behind each doorway lies a network of chambers, hallways, and burial rooms, all together. Sant'Andrea-Priu contains around 20 rock-cut tombs, making it one of the largest prehistoric burial complexes in the Mediterranean. The tombs were created by the Ozieri culture, a Neolithic society that lived on Sardinia between roughly 3,200 and 2,800 BCE. These early farming communities possessed no metal tools made of iron or steel. Instead, using stone implements, bone tools, and extraordinary patience, they carved entire underground chambers into soft volcanic tuff. The precision of their work continues to impress archaeologists today. The name Domus de Janus emerged much later through Sardinian folklore. According to local legends, tiny magical beings known as Janus lived inside the rock-cut chambers. These fairy-like women were believed to weave cloth from threads of gold, guard hidden treasures, and occasionally help kind travelers. The mysterious underground rooms naturally became associated with these supernatural figures. In reality, archaeology reveals a very different purpose. Excavations show that the chambers served as communal tombs. Families returned repeatedly over generations to place their dead inside. Human bones, pottery, stone tools, jewelry, and ceremonial objects have all been recovered from the site. Rather than simply disposing of the deceased, the builders created carefully designed spaces that may have symbolized a continued connection between the living and their ancestors. Death was not viewed as an ending, but as a transition. Many of the chambers imitate the layout of prehistoric houses: doorways, false windows, carved ceiling beams, columns, and decorative features were sculpted directly into the stone. Some rooms even contained symbolic architectural details that served no structural purpose. Researchers believe these features transformed the tomb into an eternal home for the dead. The familiar design may have reflected the belief that life continued beyond death in another form. One chamber at Sant'Andrea-Priu stands out above all the others. Known as the Tomb of the Chief, it contains multiple interconnected rooms covering an unusually large area. Its size suggests that individuals of particularly high social status may have been buried there. The careful workmanship, the spacious layout, and the complexity of the design distinguish it from the surrounding tombs. Although no inscriptions identify those buried within, the monument reflects the existence of social hierarchy even during the Neolithic period. The site also experienced an extraordinary second life centuries later. During the early Christian period, several of the prehistoric tombs were converted into churches. Walls were plastered, religious paintings were added, altars were constructed inside chambers that had originally served as prehistoric graves. Fragments of medieval frescoes still survive, showing how one sacred landscape was adapted by entirely different cultures thousands of years apart. Few archaeological sites demonstrate such a remarkable continuity of spiritual use. Despite decades of research, many questions remain unanswered. Why were certain chambers decorated while others remained simple? Did different families own different tombs? What ceremonies accompanied the burials? How were the dead remembered after they were placed inside? Because the Ozieri people left no written language, archaeologists must reconstruct their beliefs through architecture, artifacts, and careful excavation. Every new discovery adds another small piece to the puzzle. Today, Sant'Andrea-Priu stands as one of Europe's most remarkable prehistoric necropolises. Its chambers are silent, yet they preserve echoes of beliefs formed more than 5,000 years ago. What began as homes for the dead became fairy houses in local legend, then Christian chapels. And finally, one of Sardinia's most treasured archaeological sites. The carved doorways still invite visitors into the darkness, not to reveal every answer, but to remind us that beneath the surface of history, entire worlds can remain hidden, waiting patiently for those willing to step inside. The Kemune Palace Reservoir. Along the banks of the Tigris River, in the Kurdistan region of northern Iraq, an ancient palace slept beneath the waters of a modern reservoir. For decades, its walls remained hidden, submerged beneath the surface. Then, in 2018, an unexpected drought caused the water level to fall. As the reservoir retreated, massive stone walls slowly emerged from the mud. Archaeologists hurried to the site. They knew the opportunity might last only weeks before the water returned. What they uncovered revealed one of the most remarkable discoveries ever made from beneath the reservoir. A palace belonging to the powerful Mitanni Empire. The site is known today as Kemune. It lies beside the Mosul Dam Reservoir, an artificial lake created during the 20th century. When the reservoir filled, much of the ancient settlement disappeared beneath the water. Only during periods of unusually low rainfall has the palace become accessible. Every appearance is temporary. Once the rains return, the ruins disappear beneath the lake once again. The palace dates to approximately the 15th century BCE, more than 3,400 years ago. At that time, the region formed part of the Mitanni Kingdom, one of the great powers of the ancient Near East. Although the Mitanni ruled large areas of present-day Iraq, Syria, and southeastern Turkey, very few of their monumental buildings have survived. As a result, every discovery connected to their civilization is of exceptional importance. When archaeologists first examined the exposed structure, they found walls rising several meters high. Some reached almost 7 meters in height, an astonishing level of preservation considering centuries beneath the water. Large rooms surrounded spacious courtyards, doorways, storage areas, and carefully constructed foundations revealed the building had once served as an important administrative or royal residence. The palace overlooked the Tigris River, a strategic position that allowed control of trade and communication across the region. One of the greatest surprises came from the walls themselves. Fragments of brightly colored plaster still clung to the stone. Shades of red, blue, and white remained visible despite thousands of years of burial. Such painted wall decorations are extremely rare in Bronze Age Mesopotamia. They suggest that the palace was once richly decorated, reflecting the wealth and influence of its occupants. Although time has faded much of the color, the surviving fragments offer a rare glimpse into the appearance of Mitanni architecture. Perhaps the most significant discovery occurred during later excavations. Archaeologists uncovered several clay tablets written in cuneiform. These tablets had been carefully stored inside ceramic vessels. The inscriptions may contain valuable information about the final years of the Mitanni kingdom, its administration, or the changing political landscape of the ancient Near East. Many of the texts are still being studied, offering historians the possibility of filling important gaps in the historical record. The excavation itself became a race against time. Researchers understood that the reservoir would eventually refill, working rapidly. International teams documented every wall, every room, and every artifact. They photographed the structures, created detailed maps, and recovered fragile objects before rising waters forced them to leave. Once the work was completed, the palace was carefully covered with protective sheeting and gravel. This temporary protection helps shield the ancient walls until the site emerges again. The palace also raises intriguing questions. Why was such an important royal complex built at this location? Did it serve as a provincial capital, a seasonal residence, or an administrative center controlling nearby territories? Archaeologists continue comparing Kemune with other Bronze Age settlements throughout Mesopotamia. Each excavation season provides new clues, but many aspects of the palace's role remain uncertain. Like much of the Mitanni civilization, its story survives only in fragments. Today, Kemune represents one of archaeology's most unusual sites, unlike monuments that stand permanently beneath open skies. Its existence, depends upon the changing level of a reservoir. Most visitors will never see it. For much of the time, it remains hidden beneath millions of liters of water, yet every drought briefly allows the ancient palace to return. Almost as if history itself rises from the depths, its emergence reminds us that remarkable chapters of the past may still lie concealed beneath modern landscapes, waiting for nature, chance, and careful archaeology to reveal them once more. Horvat Midras, the hidden underground city. Horvat Midras is located in the Judean lowlands between Jerusalem and the Mediterranean coast. The site occupies a strategic position that has attracted settlers for centuries. Archaeological evidence shows continuous occupation from the Iron Age. Through the Second Temple period, the Roman era, the Byzantine Empire, and into the early Islamic period, each civilization left traces behind, creating a remarkable archaeological record layered beneath the ground. The settlement above was once a thriving village. Stone houses lined its streets. Agricultural terraces covered the surrounding hills. Olive presses, storage facilities, and water systems supported a prosperous farming community. But what makes Horvat Midras exceptional is not what stands above the surface. It is what lies below. The villagers transformed the soft limestone into an extensive underground complex unlike almost anything visible from above. The tunnels served several purposes. Large cisterns collected precious rainwater during the dry seasons. Storage chambers protected food supplies from heat. Burial caves provided places for the dead. But during periods of conflict, entire sections were connected through narrow crawl spaces and hidden passageways. Some tunnels are so small that visitors must move on their hands and knees. These cramped corridors were intentionally designed. They slowed invading soldiers while allowing local residents, who knew the routes, to move secretly beneath the village. Many archaeologists believe these underground hideouts played an important role during the Bar Kokhba revolt, a major Jewish uprising against Roman rule between 132 and 136 CE throughout Judea. Communities created elaborate underground refuge systems. Horvat Midras appears to have been one of them. Hidden entrances, sharp turns, false passages, and concealed chambers allowed defenders to disappear beneath the village when Roman forces approached. These were not ordinary basements. They were carefully planned survival networks. One of the site's most remarkable discoveries is a monumental burial cave. Inside, visitors find beautifully carved stone architecture, columns, arched ceilings, and decorative niches, although centuries of looting removed many original burial objects. The craftsmanship remains impressive. The tomb reflects considerable wealth and skilled stoneworking. Its architecture demonstrates that Horvat Midras was far more than a small farming settlement. It was a community with significant resources and cultural sophistication. Excavations have uncovered countless artifacts, fragments of pottery, oil lamps, coins, glass vessels, and everyday household tools help reconstruct daily life across many centuries. Some objects belong to the Jewish inhabitants of the Roman period. Others reflect later Byzantine Christian occupation. The changing artifacts illustrate how different cultures inherited the same landscape, adapting older buildings rather than abandoning them. History at Horvat Midras accumulated layer upon layer. Perhaps the greatest achievement of the builders was their understanding of geology. The local limestone was soft enough to carve, yet strong enough to support large underground chambers. Workers carefully expanded natural cavities into interconnected rooms without causing widespread collapse. Even after nearly 2,000 years, many of the tunnels remain remarkably stable. Their survival demonstrates extraordinary practical knowledge, passed down through generations of experienced stoneworkers. Despite decades of excavation, much of Horvat Midras remains unexplored. Ground-penetrating surveys suggest additional underground spaces still lie hidden beneath the surrounding fields. Some passages remain blocked by collapsed rock. Others may never be excavated to preserve the site's stability. Each new archaeological season reveals fresh details. but also raises new questions about how extensive the underground network once truly was. Today, Horvat Midras stands as one of the finest examples of an ancient hidden settlement beneath the landscape of Judea. Above ground, the ruins appear peaceful, almost ordinary. Below, an intricate world of tunnels, water systems, refuges, and tombs tells a very different story. It reminds us that history is not always written in towering monuments or grand temples. Sometimes, its greatest achievements are hidden beneath our feet, carved patiently into stone, waiting quietly for someone to discover the forgotten world below. The ancient perfume factory of Pyrgos is located on the southern coast of Cyprus, an island that occupied a strategic position between Egypt, Anatolia, the Levant, and the Aegean. During the early and Middle Bronze Age, Cyprus became an important center of trade. Ships regularly crossed the eastern Mediterranean carrying copper, pottery, textiles, and luxury goods. Pyrgos flourished within this network, serving not only as a manufacturing settlement, but also as a commercial hub connecting distant civilizations. The remarkable discovery came during archaeological excavations led by Italian researchers. Among the ruins, they uncovered an industrial complex unlike anything previously known from the Bronze Age. The site contained workshops, storage rooms, large hearths, grinding stones, mixing basins, and an astonishing collection of ceramic vessels specifically designed for producing scented oils. The layout suggested organized mass production rather than small-scale household activity. This was not a single artisan making perfume. It was an entire manufacturing center. Evidence shows that perfume production at Pyrgos began around 2000 BCE. Workers gathered fragrant plants from across Cyprus: anise, coriander, bay leaves, bitter almonds, myrtle, pine, and aromatic herbs appear to have been among the ingredients. These botanicals were crushed, heated gently with olive oil, and carefully infused to capture their natural fragrance. The resulting scented oils could then be stored, transported, or traded throughout the Mediterranean world. The production process required impressive technical knowledge. Temperature had to be carefully controlled. Too much heat would destroy delicate plant oils. Too little, and the fragrance would fail to infuse properly. Archaeologists discovered specially designed furnaces capable of maintaining relatively stable temperatures. Large ceramic containers surrounded the heating areas, allowing artisans to prepare multiple batches simultaneously. The factory demonstrates that Bronze Age craftspeople understood practical chemical processes through generations of experience, even without modern scientific theory. Perfume in the ancient world served many purposes. It was not merely a luxury. Fragrant oils were used during religious ceremonies, applied to the body after bathing, offered to deities in temples, and presented as prestigious gifts among rulers and wealthy merchants. Some aromatic compounds may also have possessed medicinal or antiseptic qualities. Owning fine perfume reflected both status and access to long-distance trade networks. Pyrgos helped supply that growing demand. The factory formed only one part of a much larger industrial settlement. Excavations revealed evidence for copperworking, wine production, olive oil processing, textile manufacture, and pottery making. These activities existed side by side, suggesting that Pyrgos functioned as a highly organized economic center. Raw materials arrived from surrounding regions, were transformed by skilled craftspeople, and then exported to markets across the eastern Mediterranean. The community displayed a remarkable level of specialization for its time. Unfortunately, the settlement's prosperity came to a sudden end around 1850 BCE. A powerful earthquake struck the region. Walls collapsed, furnaces were destroyed, workshops fell silent, many buildings were abandoned beneath layers of debris. Ironically, that destruction helped preserve the factory. Collapsed walls sealed many artifacts beneath the rubble, protecting them from later disturbance for nearly 4,000 years. Modern scientific analysis has provided additional insights. Residue studies performed on pottery fragments have identified traces of aromatic plant compounds consistent with perfume production. Combined with the factory's specialized equipment, These findings strongly support the interpretation that Pyrgos was a center for manufacturing scented oils, rather than relying solely on artistic impressions. Researchers have been able to combine archaeology, chemistry, and botanical science to reconstruct aspects of Bronze Age fragrance production. Today, the ancient perfume factory of Pyrgos reminds us that innovation did not begin in modern laboratories. Long before written recipe books, ancient craftspeople mastered complex techniques through careful observation, experimentation, and generations of accumulated knowledge. The fragrances they created have long since faded into the air, their scents carried away by thousands of years of history. Yet the stone workshops remain, silent evidence that even in the Bronze Age, humanity sought not only to survive, but also to surround everyday life with beauty, memory, and the invisible power of perfume. The flint mines beneath Grime's graves. Grime's graves lies in Norfolk, not far from England's eastern coast. The site contains more than 400 individual mine shafts, spread across nearly 30 hectares. Each shaft appears today as a shallow depression, created after thousands of years of gradual collapse. From the air, the landscape resembles a field covered with countless circular craters. Only archaeological excavation revealed that each depression marks the entrance to an ancient underground mine. The mines date to approximately 2600 BCE, during Britain's late Neolithic period. At that time, metal tools remained extremely rare. Instead, communities depended upon flint, a hard stone capable of producing razor-sharp cutting edges. Flint was used to manufacture axes, knives, arrowheads, scrapers, and countless everyday tools. High-quality flint became one of the most valuable natural resources available to prehistoric societies. The miners dug astonishingly deep shafts. Some descend more than 12 meters into the chalk. At the bottom, workers excavated narrow horizontal galleries, following layers of particularly pure black flint. The resulting underground network spread outward like the spokes of a wheel. These passages were often barely large enough for a person to crawl through, yet they extended several meters in every direction from each central shaft. Perhaps the most surprising aspect of Grime's graves is the technology used to create it. The miners possessed no iron, no bronze picks for much of the site's earliest history, and no explosives. Instead, they relied primarily upon picks made from the antlers of red deer. Thousands of discarded antler tools have been recovered from the mine shafts. Although simple in appearance, these tools proved remarkably effective for cutting through soft chalk while leaving valuable flint intact. Life underground must have been extraordinarily difficult. The shafts were dark, confined, and filled with dust. Workers probably descended using wooden ladders or footholds carved into the shaft walls. Light came from small lamps burning animal fat. Fresh air circulated only through the shaft openings. Mining required immense physical effort, combined with careful planning to prevent dangerous collapses. Yet generation after generation returned to the same underground passages. Excavations have uncovered more than mining tools. Archaeologists have found pottery fragments, animal bones, worked flint, and traces of fires used for lighting or warmth. One particularly intriguing discovery involved the remains of a red deer antler placed deliberately at the bottom of a shaft. Some researchers believe such deposits may represent ritual offerings, perhaps intended to ensure safety underground or to honor the resources being extracted from the earth. Whether symbolic or practical, their exact purpose remains uncertain. The name Grime's graves does not come from the people who built the mines. It appeared much later during the Anglo-Saxon period. According to medieval tradition, the mysterious pits were associated with a legendary figure named Grime, sometimes linked with the Norse god Odin. People who no longer remembered the true purpose of the shafts imagined they were ancient burial places or entrances to another world. Only modern archaeology revealed that they were actually prehistoric mines. The flint extracted here traveled far beyond Norfolk. Finished axes and blades made from Grime's Graves flint have been discovered across much of Britain. This suggests extensive trade networks existed long before written history. Communities hundreds of kilometers away valued the high-quality stone. The mines therefore served not only local needs, but also supplied materials that connected distant settlements through exchange and craftsmanship. Today, visitors can descend into one reconstructed shaft, experiencing the same darkness that Neolithic miners once faced more than 4,000 years ago. The narrow tunnels inspire both admiration and humility. They remind us that prehistoric people were not simply surviving. They were engineers, skilled laborers, and careful planners capable of organizing ambitious industrial projects, hidden beneath the quiet fields of Norfolk. Graves preserves the story of a forgotten underground world, where determination, ingenuity, and patience transformed solid rock into the tools that shaped an entire civilization. The stone faces of Sefer Tepe. On a lonely ridge in southeastern Türkiye, far from crowded tourist routes, massive stones emerge from the earth. Some stand upright, others lie where they fell thousands of years ago. Among them, several carved pillars bear an unmistakable feature: human faces, eyes, noses, and carefully shaped expressions gaze silently across the landscape. These are the mysterious stone faces of Sefer Tepe, a site so ancient that it predates both Stonehenge and the Egyptian pyramids by thousands of years. Yet, despite its extraordinary age, it remains one of the least known monuments of the prehistoric world. Sefer Tepe lies in the Şanlıurfa province of southeastern Türkiye. It forms part of a remarkable concentration of pre-pottery Neolithic sites scattered across the region. Many archaeologists now believe these settlements belong to a shared cultural landscape, one that flourished more than 11,000 years ago. The most famous member of this network is Göbekli Tepe. But Sefer Tepe demonstrates that Göbekli Tepe was not an isolated wonder. It was part of something much larger. The site was first identified during archaeological surveys exploring prehistoric settlements around the Harran Plain. Researchers noticed unusually shaped limestone pillars projecting from the ground. Unlike ordinary standing stones, several had clearly been carved by human hands. Among the most striking features were stylized human faces, simple yet unmistakable, deeply carved eyes, prominent noses, and smooth, featureless cheeks gave the pillars an almost lifelike presence. Even after thousands of years, their expressions remained strangely captivating. Like Göbekli Tepe, the pillars at Sefer Tepe were carved from local limestone. Some stand in T-shaped forms, a distinctive architectural style associated with the region's earliest monumental builders. Archaeologists believe these pillars represented stylized human figures rather than simple stones. On similar monuments discovered nearby, arms, hands, belts, and loincloths were carved into the shafts. Although many details at Sefer Tepe have eroded or remain buried, the carved faces strengthen the idea that these monuments symbolized people, perhaps ancestors, spiritual beings, or respected members of the community. One remarkable aspect of Sefer Tepe is its age. Radiocarbon dating from comparable sites places the construction of this cultural tradition between roughly 9,600 and 8,200 BCE. This was a period when agriculture was only beginning to emerge. Most communities still depended largely upon hunting, gathering, and the earliest forms of cultivation. Yet these people organized labor on a scale once thought impossible for prehistoric societies. The monuments challenge long-held assumptions about how civilization first developed. Unlike later civilizations, the builders left no written records. No inscriptions explain the meaning of the carved faces. No surviving myths identify the figures they represent. Archaeologists must instead interpret the site through its architecture, stoneworking techniques, and comparisons with neighboring settlements. Some researchers believe the faces represent important individuals. Others suggest supernatural beings connected with ritual gatherings. Both possibilities remain open, and neither has been conclusively proven. excavation at Sefer Tepe has only begun to reveal its full extent. Many of the limestone pillars remain partially buried beneath centuries of accumulated soil. Ground surveys indicate that additional structures almost certainly lie hidden underground. Each excavation season uncovers new architectural features, suggesting that much of the ceremonial complex still awaits discovery. What visitors see today may represent only a small fraction of the original monument. The craftsmanship itself is remarkable, using only stone tools. The builders quarried enormous blocks of limestone, shaped them with surprising precision, and transported them into carefully planned arrangements. The faces display confident carving despite their simplicity. Each deliberate cut reflects both artistic skill and careful planning. Creating such monuments required cooperation, knowledge of stone, and an organized workforce capable of completing projects that lasted many years. Sefer Tepe also contributes to a growing archaeological picture. Rather than viewing Göbekli Tepe as a unique anomaly, researchers now recognize an entire network of monumental sites spread across southeastern Türkiye. Karahan Tepe, Hamzan Tepe, Harbetsuvan Tepe, and Sefer Tepe all share architectural similarities. Together, they suggest the existence of a widespread cultural tradition whose influence extended across the region during the dawn of the Neolithic Age. Many aspects of this civilization remain unknown. Today, the stone faces of Sefer Tepe continue their silent watch over the surrounding hills. They belong to a world that existed long before cities, kings, or written history. Their creators left behind no names, only carefully carved expressions that have endured for more than 11 millennia, whether they depict ancestors, guardians, or symbols whose meanings have been forever lost. The faces remind us that humanity's earliest builders possessed remarkable imagination, extraordinary skill, and beliefs that still remain hidden behind the quiet gaze of ancient stone. The sacred pond of Girsu, across the dusty plains of southern Iraq. The ruins of one of humanity's oldest cities stretch toward the horizon. Broken mud brick walls, collapsed temples, and weathered foundations are all that remain of a civilization that flourished more than 4,000 years ago. This was Girsu, one of the great religious centers of ancient Sumer. For generations, archaeologists believed they understood much of the city's history. Then, beneath layers of windblown sand, they uncovered something unexpected, a vast sacred pond, hidden beside one of the city's most important temples. Its discovery has offered an extraordinary glimpse into the spiritual life of one of the world's earliest civilizations. Girsu, known today as Tello, was one of the principal cities of ancient Mesopotamia during the 3rd millennium BCE. It served as the religious heart of the Kingdom of Lagash. Kings traveled here to honor the city's patron deity, Ningirsu, a powerful god associated with agriculture, war, and protection. The city's temples attracted priests, craftsmen, pilgrims, and administrators from across the region. For centuries, Girsu stood at the center of Sumerian religious life. Recent excavations revealed an enormous rectangular basin beside the temple complex. Archaeologists identified it as a sacred pond, constructed with carefully engineered mud brick walls and connected to an ancient canal system. Unlike an ordinary reservoir, the pond appears to have served ceremonial rather than practical purposes. Its location, design, and association with nearby temples suggests that water held deep symbolic meaning within the sacred landscape. In ancient Mesopotamian belief, fresh water represented creation itself. According to Sumerian tradition, life emerged from the primeval waters known as the Abzu. Temples often incorporated water into rituals of purification, offering, and renewal. The newly excavated pond at Girsu may have allowed priests to perform ceremonies before entering the temple, or supplied sacred water used during festivals honoring Ningirsu. Although the exact rituals remain unknown, the pond clearly formed an essential part of the religious complex. The excavation also revealed remarkable engineering. Builders carefully lined the basin using millions of mud bricks, creating retaining walls capable of holding large volumes of water. Channels directed water into and out of the pond, allowing careful management despite the region's changing river systems. Maintaining such a structure required constant labor. Sediment had to be removed, walls repaired, canals kept clear. Its continued operation reflects the organizational abilities of one of the world's earliest urban societies. Among the most intriguing discoveries were thousands of artifacts preserved within the pond's sediments. Archaeologists recovered fish bones, animal remains, ceramic vessels, clay figurines, and ritual objects deposited over centuries. Some items were probably accidental losses. Others appear to have been deliberate offerings placed into the water during religious ceremonies. The accumulated deposits transformed the pond into an archaeological archive, recording generations of sacred activity. The surrounding temple district has also yielded numerous cuneiform tablets. These inscriptions describe offerings, festivals, construction projects, and the administration of temple estates, although no surviving tablet explicitly explains every function of the sacred pond. The written evidence confirms that water played an important role within Sumerian religious practice, combined with the archaeological remains. The texts help scholars reconstruct a richer picture of ceremonial life at Girsu. One surprising aspect of the excavation was the exceptional preservation of organic material, because waterlogged sediments often protect fragile remains from rapid decay. Seeds, plant fragments, and animal bones survived in remarkable condition. These discoveries provide valuable information about the environment surrounding Girsu, the food consumed during religious feasts, and the natural resources available to ancient Mesopotamians. The sacred pond preserves not only architecture, but also traces of everyday life rarely found elsewhere. Despite these discoveries, many questions remain unanswered. Exactly how often were ceremonies performed at the pond? Who was permitted to approach its waters? Did ordinary citizens participate, or was access limited to priests and temple officials? Future excavations may uncover additional inscriptions or structures capable of answering these questions. For now, the pond continues to guard many of its ancient secrets beneath the Mesopotamian soil. Today, the sacred pond of Girsu reminds us that the earliest cities were more than centers of trade and government. They were places where engineering, religion, and community existed side by side. Every carefully laid brick, every canal, and every offering placed into the quiet water reflected beliefs that shaped one of humanity's first great civilizations. Though the water has long since disappeared, its basin still tells the story of a people who believed that the boundary between the human world and the divine could sometimes be found in the still surface of a sacred pool. The buried ritual circles of Machrie Moor. Across the windswept Isle of Arran, off the western coast of Scotland, a series of ancient stone circles rises from open moorland. Their tall sandstone pillars stand against the sky, enduring centuries of rain, wind, and silence. Today they appear isolated, almost timeless. Yet archaeology has revealed that these famous monuments once looked completely different, long before the standing stones became visible. Several of the circles were hidden beneath great earthen mounds. The monument we see today is only the final chapter of a much older story. This is the mystery of the buried ritual circles of Machrie Moor. Machrie Moor contains 6 surviving stone circles, along with cairns, standing stones, and traces of ancient settlements scattered across the surrounding landscape. The monuments were constructed during the late Neolithic and early Bronze Age, between roughly 3,500 and 1,500 BCE. For thousands of years, different communities returned to the same sacred ground, adding new structures while preserving older ones beneath the surface. Rather than representing a single event, Machrie Moor reflects centuries of continuous ritual activity. The circles themselves vary considerably in size and design. Some contain towering sandstone monoliths reaching more than 5 meters into the air. Others consist of smaller stones arranged in almost perfect rings. Several feature central cairns, while others surround burial cists built from stone slabs. This diversity suggests that each monument served a slightly different purpose, even though they belong to the same ceremonial landscape. One of the greatest archaeological discoveries came during excavations beneath the visible circles. Researchers found evidence that some of the standing stones had not originally been erected in the open. Instead, earlier timber circles and low earthen mounds occupied the sites. Later generations deliberately covered these earlier monuments. Before constructing the impressive stone circles that survive today, the visible monuments therefore preserve multiple layers of ritual history, built one upon another across many centuries. This sequence reveals something remarkable. The people of Machrie Moor did not simply abandon older sacred places. They transformed them. Each generation respected the work of those who came before, while adapting the landscape to reflect changing beliefs and traditions. The buried ritual circles became the foundations for new monuments, creating an evolving sacred complex rather than a collection of isolated structures. The past was never erased. It was carefully incorporated into the future. Excavations uncovered charcoal, pottery fragments, worked stone tools, and cremated human remains associated with some of the circles. These discoveries indicate that ceremonies involving burial, commemoration, and ritual feasting likely took place here. However, no written records survive to explain the precise meaning of these gatherings. Archaeologists must reconstruct ancient practices through careful study of the physical evidence alone. The location itself was almost certainly chosen deliberately. Machrie Moor lies within a broad valley surrounded by dramatic mountains on clear days. The peaks create an impressive natural backdrop to the stone circles. Some researchers have suggested that the monuments were positioned to frame important views of the surrounding landscape. Others believe astronomical observations may also have influenced their placement. Certain alignments appear to correspond with the rising or setting sun during significant times of the year. While some alignments remain debated, the builders clearly understood the landscape with extraordinary precision. One feature that distinguishes Machrie Moor is its use of local red sandstone. These enormous blocks were transported from nearby outcrops, then carefully shaped and erected without metal tools or wheeled vehicles. The largest stones weigh several tons. Moving them across uneven ground would have required careful planning, large work teams, and sophisticated knowledge of leverage and balance. The construction itself became an expression of communal effort, perhaps as meaningful as the finished monument. The buried remains beneath. The circles continue to surprise archaeologists. Geophysical surveys have revealed additional features still hidden underground, including ancient pits, former timber structures, and possible ceremonial enclosures that have yet to be fully excavated. Every new investigation adds another layer to the story, suggesting that much of Machrie Moor still lies concealed beneath the peat and soil. The visible stones represent only a fraction of the original ceremonial landscape. Today, the stone circles of Machrie Moor stand quietly beneath Scotland's changing skies, their weathered surfaces shaped by more than 4,000 years of wind and rain. Yet, beneath those towering monoliths, older monuments still sleep beneath the earth, invisible to passing visitors. They preserve the memory of generations who return to the same sacred place, building, rebuilding, and honoring traditions that evolved across centuries. Machrie Moor reminds us that history is rarely a single moment frozen in time. More often, it is a landscape where every generation leaves its mark, while carefully preserving the echoes of those who came before.